I'm going to assume that you watched the previous video of me forging these pieces. In this video, you're going to get to see these pieces attached to clear vertical grain Douglas fir that came off the North Umpqua National Forest. You're going to get to see a piece of woodwork, unlike any other on the planet, get shaped, flattened, finished, and put together into a really beautiful dining room table. A lot of the woodwork that you're going to watch happens in the shop of Eric Gerritsen. He has been, until recently retiring, the spear tip at Gerritsen's Building Supply here in Roseburg. They've been around 100 years. And now he will tell you it's a hobby that's gone bad. He started a side gig, now become a real gig called Thick Stock. And he makes beautiful specialty tables and furniture pieces out of really heavy and unique pieces of wood grown right here in Southern Oregon. I think you're going to like his equipment. I think you're going to like what he does. And I just can't wait for you to see the table that results from forged iron and clear vertical grain Douglas fir. So this is Eric Gerritsen. He has been the owner and the spear tip behind Gerritsen's Building Supply, and I've been doing business there since I came back in 1994. You guys saved my butt over and over and over. He's retired from that business now, and he's concentrating on his
hobby gone bad.
Hobby gone bad. You know, there's a lesson in this. We do something because we think it's neat, pretty soon it consumes us, right?
Yeah, true.
And it's called Thick Stock Forest Products.
Yes.
So I got that right? I'll zoom in on that.
Yeah.
And he takes advantage of living in what at least used to be the lumber capital of the nation, and he has all these cool pieces that he works on. So what's your next step on the Morna Ridges tabletop?
The bottom is already flat, so we have protected it with cardboard. We put it down on this laser deck. The deck has been lasered flat. I have stopped it so it won't move, because any type of movement on this machine will show up in little lines. And we're now ready to start the progression of lowering the machine and flattening the top. And this is the back, but I try to make the back look as good as the front.
That's neat. These tops look really good. So I'm going to show these people the epoxy filler that's filling the little defects, and we're going to get this machine running, and I'm sure it's a slow motion thing, right? But so Eric's been working on this a long time, and something like this hopefully becomes an heirloom for my friends that lasts a long time. And for all of the effort and all of the value in this wood, I think it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. We're just a little about 3 1/4 now.
So Eric says we're going to take it down 1 click, which is somewhere around another 32nd of an inch, and see what it looks like at that point. This thing is so cool.
The machine's level, but
So this is my first look at the, sort of the proposed finished product. When we get the real finished material in that trestle underneath with this big, beautiful Douglas fir top on, I think it's going to be just about the right thing. We're going to have it set up in here so that Jeff and Karma can come in, hopefully tonight, get a look and decide how long they want it to be when the final length is created by cutting off the ends of this thing. I think Eric's got it pretty well sanded. I don't think there's any finish on it yet. And so I need to stop in here, pick up the table base, pick up the leg material, take it back to the shop and do my part so that we can have everything ready to put the final coat of finish on before we assemble it. Turns out, bonus, Cy Swan stopped by just to catch up on our project, and I think in a few minutes, Kenny might be here too. So how far down have you sanded this now? What am I looking at as far as finish?
this has been done with a 120 board.
Okay. 120 grit on a sanding board, so it's flat.
Yeah.
He's going to put just this lazy radius on the ends, and how long is it going to net? Have you figured that out yet?
Around 10'6", I think.
126 inches. So the cool thing is this piece of fir came out of the woods just up the river that we've all been running around since we were kids, and Cy ran cattle up there. Heck, you might have run a cow by this tree for that matter. And but it burned up 3 years ago, and this came out of one of those logs.
Archie Creek Fire.
The Archie Creek Fire, 160,000 acres of my childhood home burned up. But this is a fine way to memorialize it. I mean, Jeff grew up in the same country in Karma, and so it's going to be a permanent reminder. The time has come to transfer the holes from these sacrificial mock-up pieces of Douglas fir to the real pieces, the ones that are hard to replace. And so I have tried to create sort of a legend or a labeling system so that I can get the good pieces to present in the right way and then keep track of whatever decision it was that I made about which of these faces should be out, facing the public when they walk into the space, and which of them should be slightly obscured. This piece right here has most of the defect. It's got almost a knot, it's got a pitch seam, 2 pitch seams, and a big pitch seam on the inside. So I think trying to balance everything that I can balance and overthinking everything I can possibly overthink, that this is the way that these are going to be oriented under the table. And now I just have to put the same marks on the top of these that I put on the top of those. There were some comments after the first video in this series questioning why, after going to all the effort of forging the ironwork that holds this table together, I would have used hex-headed bolts. Why just use regular 6-sided, factory-made bolt heads on something that is clearly handmade? Well, it was a considered decision. And you need to know, or perhaps you already know, that I have made plenty of square and textured bolt heads. I like what is called a 5-cloud head, and I did a video about that. But the consideration was that the wood is the emphasis on this table. And the ironwork, however attractive it may or may not be, is secondary. And if this was primarily a forged iron table with a little bit of wood just to hold up the plates, well, yes, I probably would have gone to a great deal of additional effort in the blacksmithing process. But as it is, less is more, and assembly is easier, and it seemed to me to be the sweet spot in the design concept. So I assume you saw these spacers? It's because these sacrificial pieces are 4x4, and these are 3 11/16 square or so. It took that amount to get down to a nice clean face that'll be sandable and to get rid of some of the saw marks and irregularities in a rough sawn board. But frankly, the top netted at 3 1/8 instead of a heavier dimension, and so I think and I hope that the proportion is going to be, pleasing. I am optimistic. This stretcher is about the most subjective thing, because the two sets of holes don't necessarily come in exactly the same spot on the two sides. I remember I kind of hip shot the hole across there to accommodate the difference in the forging. It's close, but we're just going to have to rely on the fact that I'm drilling a 1/2-inch hole and using a 7/16 bolt. Hopefully that builds in enough fudge factor. So as a blacksmith, you fiddle around making hot cuts and cold chisels and center punches, and you harden. You try to heat treat and get things hard and temper them. And I'm not the greatest. I have moderate success. But about the best center punch that I've found is to find an older Stanley nail set and sharpen it. Don't get it hot when you sharpen it. Keep it cool. Put a center punch point on that, and it is a great, great center punch. Well, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little anxious about poking holes in these kind of hard to replace pieces of clear vertical grain fir. But I've laid them out as carefully as I can figure out a way to do it. And I've got a new drill press that I got just for the wood shop. Bought it from a friend of mine, a friend of a friend that I've become acquainted with. I think it's pretty good. I brought it in here yesterday and needed it today. So that's just one more example of timing working out about right. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and run these holes in as pilots for the lag bolts. And then we will see if it works. Fingers crossed. So 2 reasons I need 2 drill presses. One is it's probably 40 feet from here out to the blacksmith shop to use a radial drill. And the second is I can't be dripping oil all over nice wood. And I intend to be putting together a fair amount of nice wood over the next 3 or 4 years in this shop. And so Steve said he would sell this, and I think it's just perfect for what I need to do here for a while. It fits right in midstream. I realized I had only barely made enough sort of notes and marks on these iron pieces to be able to get them back where they went. But I think we figured it out. I had to ream out 2 holes just a little to get a little bit of adjustment right through here. This is all still loose, but that means that when the tabletop sits on it, I can tweak it around till everything is square off the tabletop, square off the stretcher, and then put it back together hard. So right now, I'm going to take it apart, carefully set the iron pieces aside, and take these pieces back over to Eric's workshop, where he is finishing the top with a very specific series of steps to put the right gloss, the right sheen, the right color on this softwood species, fir, that'll help it stand up to hopefully decades of use as a centerpiece table in a beautiful living room. So the trick is that you have to, just the process of bringing this log in put Mars in the outside that you had to clean up.
Yeah, when I have a real sharp point, then I dock it back.
Yeah.
Because the sharp point, nobody wants to lean up against a sharp, a super sharp point. So
right.
I dock it back. Then I take a brushing wheel and I brush it.
To raise the grain a little.
Raise the grain, and then I go ahead and put on the light color, and then I put on the dark color.
And it looks nice.
And then you get
very
that
appealing.
Odyssey there, but it looks real. And there's a big, there's a great big old there's a big epoxy mark right there.
Wow, gone.
That's probably a ½ an inch deep.
Gone. Wow.
And
so shine a light across that top. That looks really nice. So you're down to what grit on that now?
120.
Is that a good place to stop?
I've done 4 120s with the sanding board. Then I'll switch to 150. With the product that we're using, you can go down maybe, where you go down with Odie's, you can go clear down to 400 or 1,000.
And it'll still take up the...
Right, but if it's somebody like Rubio Monocoat, then you've got to go down to about 150 and stop, because Rubio only sticks to the wood, not itself. So it doesn't work well at high grit levels.
Interesting. It only sticks to the wood and not itself.
Yeah.
So I brought the pieces to the base down here, and they're stowed over here on the side of Eric's production lineup, and he's going to do the same treatment to these guys that he's doing to that guy, so that it all looks like it came right out of the same nest. And in effect it did. We have clear vertical grain Douglas fir with a little bit of slab grain showing up here and there, but it's all beautiful and it's all it's all just about the way it ought to be. Eric called me this morning and he said that the legs are finished, ready to take back to my shop and assemble. And I'm going to stop by and you're going to get a look at him getting ready to put the top finish on the top of the table. The bottom is already perfectly finished. The legs match nicely, and get a look at what he's doing, would you?
I'm doing the final 120 flat sand with the flat board. Then we're going to 150 it, then we're going to 220 it, and then we're going to put on Odie's oil, 3 products. The Super Duper.
What do you start with?
The Super Duper.
Okay.
Regular oil. Then we use an Odie's dark butter. Then we finish with an Odie's dark wax.
When did you find this process? I've never heard of this before. This is a furniture process or what?
It's a furniture process. The industry is beginning to use, or has been using for a few years, where you can apply finishes in a dusty environment.
Right. Rather than lacquers and stuff where you can't do any dust, you do this.
Right.
Is this more repairable? I mean, is this something that Old English or something will make better?
Yeah, this is repairable. If we have a table that's got varnish or polyurethane on it, then you have to strip it and redo the whole thing. And I'm not saying that's a bad finish. The hard finishes are great, but most shops don't have spray booths in them, so we use these European hard wax finishes.
Okay, because if there's one thing you've got in here, it's wood dust, right?
A little bit.
That's right. All right, well, I can't wait to see what it looks like. The legs and the stretchers and everything look really good, and they've got the same process, yes?
Yes, they've got the Odie's dark oil coat.
What grit did you sand these to?
They're sanded, the legs are sanded to 150.
Just right.
And I left the defects showing.
They're great. And thank you for leaving my indexing marks, or I would never figure it out. Yeah, here are the legs. Real velvety, feels soft. Clear vertical grain fur. That's the slab grain. There's an indexing mark. Yay. Well, it's taken a lot of time. A lot of calendar days have gone by with everyone's schedule and the log cabin process of first one step and then the next. But we are to the end game. And so in the next video, you're going to get to see these pieces assembled, tightened up, transported, and installed in a new house that is up the North Umpqua River, very close to where the material actually came from. Thank you for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.